Jim Lampley. Jim, talk to me about Larry Merchant, working with him. How was that?
Well, it's appropriate that we talk about Larry Merchant today because we're in Brooklyn. And Larry Merchant was a product of Lafayette High School in Brooklyn, New York. He was a 135-pound halfback who told his father that he wanted to go to college and play college football. And his father said, well, Brooklyn College has a football team. And Larry said, no, I'm going to go to Oklahoma. And he wound up going to Oklahoma as a walk-on at the moment when Oklahoma was in the process of building a legendary 56-game winning streak. And he managed to make it as practice spotter onto the roster of the Oklahoma Sooners. And he wore an Oklahoma jersey, and he even got into a game or two. That's the kind of guy Larry Merchant was and always has been. He reached for the best. He was not intimidated by any circumstance or anybody who told him he couldn't do something, and he became a true great at what he did. Larry Merchant, as a newspaper sports editor, was so brilliant that he took a small suburban newspaper in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia Daily News and built it from a circulation of 25,000 to more than 400,000 in a matter of a few years.
Wow.
As the sports editor. And he did it with things like, in 1964, the Phillies, who were perennial tail enders in the National League, usually finishing 8th in the league, started the season with a long winning streak and wound up being in first place all season long. And all of Philadelphia was inflamed and excited by the possibility of the Phillies playing in the World Series. And then they lost, I think, 9 of the last 10 and lost the pennant on the last day of the season to the St. Louis Cardinals. The year that Gene Mauch, the manager, kept putting Bunning and Short on the mound day after day after day, trying to nail down the pennant, and Bunning and Short got worn out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was a tremendous heartbreak for Philadelphia baseball fans. So what did Larry Merchant do as the sports editor of the Philadelphia Daily News? He went to the World Series and he wrote for 9 straight days as though the Phillies were in the World Series. He gave baseball fans in Philadelphia what they had wanted and what they had dreamed of all summer long. He created the box scores. He created the rundown on the game. He created the locker room quotes. Everything was made up out of whole cloth, but it gave to the fans what it was they had dreamed of all summer. That was the kind of inspirational thinker and intelligent sports reporter that Larry Merchant was. And to work with him for all those years on HBO was a tremendous privilege for me, an educational experience, and I'm honored to this day to call him my friend.
Jim, I'm going to ask you about 3 fighters that what's your opinion on them? Tony Ayala Jr., what did you think about him?
Blood and guts. Tony Ayala Jr. was a come-forward fighter of the highest order, who was willing to risk anything to win a fight. He was the kind of fighter that Latino American fans most identified with and wanted to see at that time. He had trouble in his personal life. A lot of fighters have. It's not uncommon.
Alex Ramos, Bronx Bomber.
Alex Ramos, a little bit more talented than Tony Ayala. A little bit more of a technician, not quite as blood and guts, but still very entertaining and fun to watch.
Tommy Morrison.
Tommy Morrison. Great left hook. I remember I got ridiculed in USA Today one time by a writer who didn't know what he was talking about because I had said on the air that Tommy Morrison's left hook was the most feared single weapon in the heavyweight division.
That's right.
And I got taken apart and criticized for that. But I firmly believed what I said, that other fighters understood and realized that there was one thing in that division you needed to stay away from. It was Tommy's left hook.
Back in the day when they used to have boxing, you always heard of Howard Cosell. What was your thoughts on growing up? And you were talking about that famous fight with Muhammad Ali when Sonny Liston. What did you think about Howard Cosell as a boxing guy?
Well, boxing is by nature a theatrical sport. Howard understood that. Howard was by nature a theatrical personality. He was not afraid to tried to call attention to himself. I think fighters, Muhammad Ali in particular, understood that they were dealing with a kindred spirit in the sense that he wanted to be the center of attention just as much as they did, and just as he could play the fighters, Muhammad Ali in particular, as a means of building up his own personality, they could play him as a means of building up their personality. So that was called a symbiotic relationship. Howard had a symbiotic relationship with a fair number of the fighters that he covered. As a colleague, me working with him at ABC Sports, no picnic. Not something you would have asked for in your life, but I got through it and it worked out all right.
Listen, thank you for your time and courtesy. And as you can see, I'm starstruck, man, because I always look forward to hearing your insights in HBO boxing. And it's nice to see you, and I'm glad you're
My
okay.
privilege. Thank you.
Be safe. Bye. Bye.
Mi nombre es Vanessa y hacemos un llamado para que se suscriban al canal de las 5 esquinas.